All right, so in this module, I'm going to be going over hydration, water, and really the foundations of understanding the importance of water, no matter what your goals are. Just some simple facts that have been found through research is that water improves one's ability to detoxify, it improves performance, it reduces your risk of injury, it increases your cognitive function, and it improves your sleep, it reduces hunger, all these beneficial things. And we know that water is good for us, but we don't really understand how it works within our body, how it relates to quantum health and nutrition, how it relates to hormone optimization, how it relates to your goals, no matter what you're trying to do. Some other facts that may give you some aha moments are the fact that if you are dehydrated just by 1%, and they can measure this out through urine samples. This has been peer-reviewed research where they measure out somebody who's 1% dehydrated, and they can measure that, as I said, in their urine. And then they test out their memory recall and their ability to retain information. And they found that if you're just 1% dehydrated, that means your electrolytes are low, it means your salt, potassium, magnesium, and the water that is carried in through your cells through those electrolytes, which I'll explain in just a little bit, you are a 10% decrease in memory and information retention. So if you're 1% dehydrated, you have a reduction in cognitive function by 10%. If you're 2% dehydrated, then you have 20%. It's a 1 to 10 ratio on average. Now, this just explains the importance of how important water is to maintain function, to think clearly, to be at your best, right? You got to have water constantly on tap. I put it in a glass jar. I keep the jar open. I expose it to light, sunlight specifically. I'll actually have a copper pitcher that holds my water. So I use a Berkey filter, water filter, and then I'll pour that Berkey water filter into a copper pitcher and let that sit out in the sun. And there's reasons for that, which we'll get into. But it's just understanding that water is much more than just H2O. It's much more than just engine oil for your body. We think of water just as it's in every cell. We're made up of 80% water. Our brain is made up of water. But that stat of that 1 to 10 ratio of dehydration to cognitive function just explains how important water is and how it can influence your performance. Now, on the body aspect of things, for losing weight, for optimizing hormones, every cell contains water in it, and a cell does not operate or function without water. Your risk of injury goes up by upwards of 30 to 40% by being dehydrated. Your performance, physical performance, so in strength training or sports or anything, your performance will decrease by 20% or more. So let's say you can lift 100 pounds and you're dehydrated, you can only lift maybe 80 pounds at that point. Or your ability to do 10 sets of a certain exercise will go down to 8 sets of a certain exercise, and your risk of injury will increase by that, by performing those exercises. So your performance goes down, which means that your results will go down as well. Your ability to detoxify, to get rid of things. This process of hormone optimization and health optimization and mastering yourself and metabolic mastery is all about detoxification, getting rid of the things that no longer serve you. And that is from a chemical standpoint, from a pollutant standpoint, right? The air pollution that we're surrounded with, the exposure to EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, the exposure to plastics within our water, within our food, our packaging, our clothing, all these things. We have a lot of permanent chemicals that just kind of stick around in our environment. We pick up through breathing, we pick up through our skin, we pick up through our eyes, we pick up through eating and drinking. We pick up all these things, so we need to have a medium, a fluid, to be able to transfer and detoxify things. So this is where we're going to get into the quantum level of hydration. So there's something called the fourth phase of water, and I will attach a YouTube video which explains this in great detail, but I'm going to be summarizing it in a way that you can look at water just differently. Now, there's three phases to water that we know of that are popularly believed in, right? So you have liquid, gas, and solid. So you have ice, you have liquid form as we know it, and then you have water vapor, right? So, or steam. But there's a fourth phase of water, which is called exclusion zone water or easy water. And this exclusion zone water stands for basically a water that forms into a crystal-like structure. It's not solid, but it's a crystal-like structure in that the H2O molecules, the two hydrogen atoms and the one oxygen atom that combine together to make H2O, right? These are atoms of H2O all combined together to create what we look and see as water, forms into a fourth phase of water, which looks like water as well, but it's structured differently. It forms into H3O2. Now, the most important thing to understand about this fourth phase of water is not necessarily the atomic structure of it, but more so what it does within your body. So your body actually creates this fourth phase of water. And it's created in other ways other than your body, but within your cells, every cell in your body, you have a negative 70 trilovolt charge on average. So you have a negative charge. This can be measured out through an electrometer. This can be measured out and that basically just means you're an electric being. Your body is electrified. Think of static electricity. You conduct electricity, right? That is all to just basically explain what happens within our body is conductivity. Cells communicate and interact with each other. The 50 trillion cells that you have in your body, the other 500 trillion bacterial cells that you have in your body. That's a rough estimate, by the way, but it's 90% of our body is bacteria cells. 10% of the own cells that we have in our body are skin cells, hair cells, all these different cells are only 10% of our body is made up of our own cells. But each of these cells contain a negative 70 trilovolt charge to it, negative. And the reason why that is because of this structured water, this easy water. It has two different names, easy water, structured water. And the reason why it's called structured is because the H2O atoms restructure themselves when they get into this type of structure or this environment. So look at this jar as your cell. And inside the jar, or inside the cell, you have water, you have protein, you have nucleus, you have DNA, you have mitochondria, which is the most important piece to understand within this. Mitochondria is known as the power source to your cells, right? So within each and every cell of your body, skeleton muscle cells, heart cells, stomach cells, every cell in your body that you have contains mitochondria in it. And those mitochondria, you could have tens to hundreds of mitochondria within each cell. Each of the mitochondria within the cell actually charges the water within that cell to create what's called easy water or structured water. And this water is negatively charged. It contains a vast amount of electrons that ultimately condense themselves against a surface. So along the surface of a cell, the inside surface of a cell, and around any type of solid structure within that cell, it could be the nucleus, it could be the mitochondria, the water forms an electron barrier around the inside of the cell. And that electron barrier, so you have protons, electrons, and neutrons within an atom, right? The electrons align themselves to create a structure, hence structured water. And what it does is it excludes anything from getting through that barrier. So think of this water, it looks to the naked eye like it is just H2O. But if you were to look under a microscope and actually be able to look at the electrons within this water that fill this jar or fill the cell in our example here. The inside of the barrier, so if I were to like look down, you could see the outer edge or the rim, right? The rim of here. And inside that rim would be a majority of protons. And then on the outside of the inner rim, there would be a vast amount of electrons, which creates this electron negative charge barrier. And they found that no toxins, no bacteria, nothing can penetrate or get through that electron barrier. That exclusion zone is what it's known as. So if this is going over your head, and don't worry about that. I want you to check out the YouTube video after this and then rewatch this video to come back to it to really understand it at a deeper level. Because the more repetition that you go through, the more you're going to understand this. And you're going to look at water completely different because it's actually an energy source. It's an ability to conduct energy, electricity, and for our cells in our body to function properly. So you can start to understand if you're dehydrated that you're literally a battery with low water, which is not going to be able to conduct electricity properly. And I know I'm adding a lot of different things in here that kind of going back and forth and all over the place, but I just want you to understand that water has a fourth phase to it. This is not woo-woo science anymore. They've actually identified this, and a YouTube video is going to expose it. This exclusion water, this easy water, or this structured water as it's known as, provides this electron barrier inside of your cells. And so that means that bad things can't go in and penetrate it. This also means that the water running through your veins, the water running through your body, creates that exclusion zone water around the organs and the tissues of your body, which provide a protective barrier. So let's say you eat something that is toxic, right? And you have a protective barrier across your entire body. You're hydrated and you're electrically charged, which has to do with lifestyle and so many other things that we're going to get into in this series. But we're covering a foundational concept here to understand why we get sunlight, why we have to eat certain foods at certain times, and why hydration is so important, and why electrolytes such as magnesium, potassium, and sodium are so important is because it creates this electron barrier in between all the cells and all the tissues within your body that ultimately just shuttle all the inflammatory things through your body to ultimately get rid of it. This is detoxification at the atomic level. So if bad things can't get through and your cells have an electric charge that are all interconnected with each other, so these trillions of cells all communicate with each other, then it can communicate and conduct electricity more effectively. And when you're more energized, another way to put it is you're more electrified, right? So if you have more energy, you're more of a full battery. When you're low energy, it's like you operating on low battery mode on your phone. It doesn't produce as much. It doesn't process as much. It doesn't do, the performance goes down. Hence, when we look at hydration or dehydration, you can now start to look at, if you're hydrated, your performance goes up, your risk of injury goes down, your cognitive performance increases, your ability to retain and gain information improves, your inflammation goes down, your sleep improves, your appetite and digestion improve. Every bodily function improves with hydration because you're electrically charging yourself and you're creating this electron barrier within the cells and the tissues in your body, which prevent from toxins and stress to penetrate through that electron barrier that is easy structured water. So now it can't get through, so it has to go somewhere, and it goes out by you pissing, breathing, shitting, and sweating. That's how you detoxify. So you're releasing water, but you're releasing so much more when you sweat. You're breathing out air, you're breathing out water as well, that water vapor, but so much more than just that. When you're peeing, you're letting go of water, but so much more than just that. And same thing when you go number 2. Same thing, you're excreting, getting rid of water through that, but so much more. And you're retaining the easy water, the electronically charged, negatively charged water. Hence why every cell in your body is at that negative 70 trilovolt charge. Now, if you're dehydrated, the opposite occurs, right? You're not getting rid of the crud, you're not getting rid of the toxins, and you have less of an easy, structured water barrier between your cells and your body tissues. So they're more susceptible to bacteria infections and toxins, heavy metals, molds, and bacteria that cause stress in your body that ultimately deplete your energy levels, lower your battery levels, so you operate on a low battery mode. This is when you feel dragging, low energy, inability to recall or memorize things, can't think straight, brain fog, right? Inflammation, joint pain, back pain, poor sleep habits, poor sleep patterns, anxiety, mood disorders, and hormone imbalance and weight gain, right? These are all root sources and root causes to ultimately performance results and success, or pain, inflammation, disease, and obesity, and hormone imbalance, and low T, right? So this is high T, this is low T, when we're getting down to the root cause of hydration and the root source to ultimately what drives the results. It's electricity. It's atomic level restructured H2O to H3O2, which carries a negative charge. H2O is two positive ions, so two positively charged ions of hydrogen and one negative charge oxygen. Oxygen is much bigger of an atom, and hydrogen is much smaller of an atom. And you can think of the structure that you've probably seen in science class, where there's like a big ball that's oxygen, and then two little balls attached from that big ball, and they zero each other out. So there's no, it's a neutral charge, right? But then when you restructure, it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio, right? Of oxygen is 2 times the charge of hydrogen, and it's negatively charged, right? So you have a negative charge plus 2 positive charges. So 2 negative charges plus 2 positive charges neutralize the charge. It's positive and negative, they're even. But when the body restructures the water into easy water, now it's H3O2. So now you have 3 positive charges times the power of 2, a total of 4 negative electrically charged ions, right? So 4 and then 3 positive, so 4 negative, 3 positive, that creates a negative charge, a negatively charged barrier, an electron charged barrier. Electrons are negatively charged, protons are positively charged, and so we got these plus minus charges kind of interacting with each other, and the electron barrier starts to create that literal barrier in your body, and that creates protection. That reduces inflammation, that reduces stress in your body. It's literally a field of electrons, which is really amazing how we're getting into the root source and cause to what drives all health things, all health and performance, and ultimately the results that you want. Now, going into how this is created in life through food, through sunlight and all these things, I'm going to go into that in another module. I want you to check out that YouTube video below where you can understand this at I think a much more organized level, but hopefully I have stimulated your thought and your curiosity to a point where you're going to be able to connect the dots between what I said and what Dr. Pollack, who discovered Easy Water, has to say about it and the proof behind it. You're going to actually see video of the structured water, what it looks like, and it's pretty amazing. So if you have any questions, let me know, post them in the group, and we can talk more about this Easy Water, because it is really foundational for you to understand this to ultimately drive all results in your program. Thanks for watching.